What kind of a policy shift does Sri Lanka need going forward? And what strategic planning and shift is needed as Sri Lanka looks at becoming a game changer in the region, and also in terms of nation building, how far have we come? To talk about all this and much more, I've invited to our studios a gentleman who has shifted policy and who has shifted strategy in the UAE to build brands and the country's brand there in Abu Dhabi and Dubai. May I warmly welcome to our studios Dr. Udaya Indrarathna.
Thank you, Indivari. Thank you so much for inviting me to your studio, and I thank Darren also for giving me this opportunity and for the invitation. Thank you, Indivari.
Thank you very much. Let me just give a brief introduction to you. You have been, you're renowned for strategic management and of course building platforms for both corporates and governments. I've been just looking at your profile. In 2012, you joined the government of Dubai, worked for 10 years for the Dubai government as Executive Director, Policy and Strategy attached to Department of Tourism and Commerce and Marketing, and you've been making strategy in terms of how the country's outlook should be, and also as Executive Director you made specific strategy platforms. I'd like to talk about all that, while you also lecture as in terms of strategic management for the Paris Sorbonne Abu Dhabi in strategic management. I look forward to a wonderful discussion for the next 45 minutes. But let me first ask you, you have returned to Sri Lanka. It seems like you want to give something back to your mother country.
Indivari, thank you. Indeed, Indivari. I was away from Sri Lanka for 37 years. And I strongly feel there's something I can give back to Sri Lanka. I'm very pragmatic, and I really think there's a time for me to give something back. So I'm very much here. Although I do some executive coaching abroad, now I'm based in Sri Lanka.
You work very closely with the government leaders of Dubai and Abu Dhabi, and in terms of shifting policy and strategy there, I'd like to talk about that too. Yeah,
from 2001 to 2012, I was attached to Dubai government, Department of Tourism and Commerce Marketing. When I left, I was the Executive Director, Policy and Strategy.
Right.
Then in year 2012, I joined Abu Dhabi government as a senior advisor on a 5-year contract. Let me tell you, UAE is the most vibrant country in the world, and they are a far-thinking nation, and I was so fortunate to work in that kind of environment that led by, in my opinion, the world's #1 visionaries, one namely His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum of Dubai, and in Abu Dhabi, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. They are both my heroes. They are unbelievably knowledge-based leaders that have changed a desert nation to world beaters. So I must say that I'm privileged to work with such an environment at that level.
You have seen the emphasis that these countries give to policy making, policy and strategic direction of the country. And let's look at Sri Lanka. What can we do here?
Indivari, is a very good question. In my opinion, we need to shift away from ad hoc management. Strategic planning, a cohesive, coherent strategic plannings are the way forward for Sri Lanka. Now, what is the meaning of strategic planning? Strategic planning is a well thought out plan which give direction for its people and give you an inspirational picture, and that's combine all the resources available. That's in simple term what strategic plan is all about. So without developing strategic plan culture in Sri Lanka, whether it's government or corporate, that's the game changer for me in Sri Lanka, I believe. So for us to go and change the game, I personally believe we have to, in academic terms, we have to build or formulate a country-specific strategic plan first. Usually, a country-specific strategic plan has at least 5 major pillars. The first one, of course, economy development pillar. Second will be the social development pillar. Third will be the legal and security pillar.
Right.
Fourth, infrastructure and development pillar. Fifth, in Sri Lanka, will be agriculture pillar. So imagine we have developed a country strategic plan based on these 5 pillars. It could be more though. Then, if I had to elaborate this process, my area is economy development. So let me take economy development strategy as a plan. So out of this 5 country plan, we picked the economy pillar, and we need to formulate the economic blueprint. Economic blueprint in the very usually has key drivers and supporting enablers. The key drivers in Sri Lanka, it could be 8 key drivers, which are the most important engines of taking Sri Lanka to the next level.
What could these 8 key drivers be?
In Sri Lanka, we report GDP on 3 sectors, which are agriculture, industry, manufacture, which means and service. Now, within that 3 sectors, I would say tourism will be one key engine. Second will be agriculture and fisheries. Third will be globally employable workforce, because we are very dependent on our foreign employment. Fourth will be a service hub, which include financial service, shipping and banking and IT, of course. Then SME and small medium enterprises and startup engine, which is a very important for a country, and so on. Then what happened in the is that once you develop the engines, that won't work very well unless you develop horizontal enablers that hold those economic key drivers. If I may explain to you, the very first one is productivity and innovation of our people. The second will be science, technology and innovation as well. And if I explain to you this 2 pillars first as horizontal pillars, years ago, maybe 25 years ago, Singapore and Thailand, they developed Singapore Productivity Institute. And then science, technology were developed parallel, targeting each industry. And then the standard councils were developed also to support. So the retail, construction, electronics, all were targeted as future industries, and they developed productivity, science, technology and standard council to make sure that happened. So if you look at today Singapore, that strategy was built 25 years ago. Similarly Thailand. So we need to think this way, not generic productivity institute, targeted productivity per segment, per enterprise. Then similarly, we need to build a nation brand platform, because without building a nation brand, our economic engine cannot be driven. The economic vitality of a country is very dependent on nation's brand strategy. So yes, the 8 engines I was talking about, it could be 10 engines as key drivers, need to be working and supported by productivity, science, technology and beyond. And also what will happen is the education and skill are also very important here. In Sri Lanka, only 8% of 370,000 childbirth goes to universities. 92% of children do not have that opportunity to go to universities. And that is a very low percentage of university graduate output. At that level of education level, we cannot be a global competitor.
You talk about Sri Lanka being a global a game changer in the region and in the rest of the world. But you say before, forget about being a player, we have to be a game changer. But Sri Lanka, in fact, has to play this game in order to be a game changer.
Right.
How do we play the game? Where do we go from here? You talk about strategy, you talk about these key drivers, the verticals and horizontals. But in your view, you're somebody who has been, who has driven through the practical aspect of implementing strategy and policy.
Yeah.
But where do you see Sri Lanka? And I'd also like an answer for the game changer matter.
Yeah. First let me answer the game changer.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we are very skillful, very talented nation, Sri Lankans are. And I travel around the world and I see Sri Lankans, they're top. And there's no shortage of talent in my country.
Mm-hmm.
What we need to do is develop right environment to bring about this challenge. So therefore, we need to think beyond norm as game changers. One is the nation brand strategy I was talking about. Now, the second I was talking about the strategic planning power as a cohesive strategic planning. So if I explain to you what we need to do, is those each key drivers. What we need to do in academic sense is do a cluster competitiveness study for each cluster. What that means? We look at, let's say, agriculture, or let's say SME development. What will be the best of class in the world running such a cluster? Then once we study that, then we do a cluster strategy matching the best class thinking, and that's a game changer. Not just enhancement of what we do to 5-10% enhancement,
Mm-hmm.
totally reaching out and match that world class cluster in that particular cluster we selected. Therefore, the 8 engines we selected as economy will have 8 world class engines to run. How would you do this? Normally the proposed mechanism is that we need to develop a working group mechanism which consists of 3 types of players.
Mm-hmm.
The first player is the experts of that. Let's say agriculture, for example. Agriculture, within agriculture, there's a tea component. So let's say now if tea is $1 billion, we want to take to $5 billion. The working group will consist of people from tea industry, from the factory, and also the consultant, and also the global expert who can add value added tea supply chain. So in this way, we can do a game changer, and then every industry, every cluster will have a strategic plan. Then what we do is we do something called strategic staircase, like a staircase. It's a 10-year horizon. So we are here today, let's say 1 billion tea industry, we want to go to 10 billion. Each year, where are we taking our industry is the strategic staircase. Then we need to assess and review using KPIs. We should use balanced scorecard concept to make sure that the capacity building, the processes and customers and the financial are properly evaluated.
Right.
So these are the game changers I'm talking about.
I think I'd like